Welcome to Sleepy Philosophy, where the greatest minds in history share their wisdom in gentle whispers designed to ease you into rest. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the vast cathedral of thought built by one of history's most profound thinkers, Thomas Aquinas, the 13th century scholar whose ideas shaped not only philosophy and theology, but the very foundations of how we understand reality, knowledge, and our place in the cosmos. Before we begin, I would love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. There is something deeply comforting about imagining these timeless ideas drifting across continents, settling into minds preparing for sleep. If you find peace in these explorations of wisdom, please consider subscribing to join our quiet community of nighttime philosophers. Your presence here helps these gentle conversations reach others who seek understanding in the stillness of evening. I do hope Thomas's measured reasoning will guide you toward rest, though I must warn you, his logic has a way of being unexpectedly captivating. Should you find yourself wide awake at the end, at least you will drift off with some of the most elegant arguments in human thought resting softly in your mind. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and allow the steady rhythm of scholastic wisdom to carry you gently forward. After all, what could be more soothing than discovering how one brilliant mind sought to weave together reason and faith, philosophy and theology, into a seamless tapestry of understanding? Thomas Aquinas stands as perhaps the most systematic thinker who ever lived. Born around 1225 in the Kingdom of Sicily, he would grow to become the architect of a philosophical cathedral so vast and intricate that scholars still walk its halls today, discovering new chambers of insight. His life's work was nothing less than ambitious. He sought to reconcile the wisdom of ancient Greek philosophy, particularly that of Aristotle, with the truths of Christian faith. In doing so, he created a synthesis that would dominate Western thought for centuries. Tonight's journey will unfold like the careful construction of a medieval cathedral, stone by stone, arch by arch, until we can step back and marvel at the complete structure. We will explore how Thomas understood the nature of existence itself, how he believed we could know truth, and how he saw the relationship between human reason and divine revelation. Along the way, we will discover his famous proofs for the existence of God, his understanding of human nature and his vision of how we should live our lives. But this is not merely an academic exercise. Thomas was a practical philosopher, deeply concerned with how we should live, how we should treat one another, and how we can find meaning and purpose in our brief time on earth. His insights remain as relevant today as they were 8 centuries ago, offering gentle guidance for modern souls seeking wisdom in an often chaotic world. The foundation of Thomas's entire philosophical system rests upon a deceptively simple, yet profound insight about the nature of existence. He distinguished between what he called essence and existence, two concepts that might seem abstract at first, but which unlock the deepest mysteries of reality when properly understood. Imagine, if you will, holding the idea of a perfect circle in your mind. You can define it precisely. A circle is a closed curve where every point is equidistant from the centre. This definition captures the essence of what it means to be a circle. It tells us what a circle is, what makes it different from a square or a triangle. But notice something remarkable. You can understand the essence of a circle perfectly without there being any actual circles existing in the world. The essence, the whatness of a circle, is distinct from its existence, whether it actually is. This distinction, Thomas argued, applies to everything in the created universe. Every being we encounter, from the smallest grain of sand to the most complex human person, has both an essence and an existence. The essence tells us what kind of thing it is. The existence tells us that it actually is, rather than merely being a possibility in someone's mind. But here is where Thomas's insight becomes truly revolutionary. In created beings, essence and existence are distinct. They are joined together, but they could in principle be separated. This is why things come into being and pass away. This is why there is change, growth, decay, and death in the world. A thing's essence does not guarantee its existence. Consider a rose in your garden. Its essence includes being a flowering plant, having thorns, producing a particular fragrance, growing in certain conditions. But the rose's essence does not require that any particular rose must exist. Roses come into being when the right conditions are met, and they pass away when those conditions change. The essence remains constant even as individual roses live and die. This insight led Thomas to a profound conclusion about the nature of God. If in all created things essence and existence are distinct, then there must be some being in which essence and existence are identical. There must be some being whose very essence is to exist, who cannot not exist, who is existence itself. This being, Thomas argued, is what we call God. This is not merely a logical exercise, but a glimpse into the deepest structure of reality. It suggests that existence itself is not something we should take for granted. The fact that there is something rather than nothing is not a brute fact, but points toward a source of existence that is existence itself. As you rest tonight, consider this gentle mystery. Your own existence, the existence of the air you breathe, the bed beneath you, the very thoughts passing through your mind, all of these participate in the mystery of existence. They exist, but they need not have existed. Their essence does not guarantee their existence. Yet here they are, and here you are, sharing in the fundamental gift of being. Thomas's understanding of knowledge flows naturally from his insights about existence and essence. He believed that human beings are wonderfully equipped to understand the world around them, but he also recognized the limits of human knowledge and the need for different kinds of truth to guide our lives. At the heart of Thomas's theory of knowledge lies a beautiful confidence in the human mind's ability to grasp reality. Unlike some philosophers who doubted whether we could truly know anything about the world beyond our own thoughts, Thomas believed that our minds are naturally oriented toward truth. We are made to know, and the world is made to be known. This confidence stems from his understanding of human nature. Thomas saw human beings as rational animals, creatures who share with other animals the ability to sense the world through sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, but who uniquely possess the power of reason. Through reason, we can abstract universal concepts from particular experiences and grasp the essences of things. When you see a particular dog, for instance, your senses provide you with information about this specific animal, its color, size, the sound of its bark, the texture of its fur. But your intellect does something remarkable. It grasps the universal concept of dog, understanding what makes this particular creature an instance of dogness. You recognize that despite vast differences in size, color, and temperament, a Great Dane and a Chihuahua share something essential that makes them both dogs. This process, Thomas explained, begins with sensation, but culminates in understanding. The mind receives impressions through the senses, but then actively works to understand what these impressions reveal about the nature of things. We do not passively receive knowledge like empty vessels being filled. Instead, we actively participate in the process of understanding, drawing universal truths from particular experiences. But Thomas was careful to acknowledge the limits of human reason. While our minds can grasp many truths about the natural world, there are some truths that exceed the capacity of human reason alone. These are not truths that contradict reason, but truths that lie beyond what reason by itself can discover. Consider the mystery of divine love. Reason can demonstrate that God exists and can understand something about God's nature through examining creation. But reason alone cannot discover that God chose to become human out of love for humanity, or that God offers forgiveness and eternal life to those who turn to him. These truths, Thomas argued, require revelation. They must be communicated by God himself. This led Thomas to distinguish between two kinds of truth. Natural truths are those that human reason can discover by examining the world around us. Revealed truths are those that God has chosen to communicate directly through scripture and tradition. Importantly, Thomas believed these two kinds of truth never truly conflict, since they both come from the same source. God is the author of both the natural world that reason studies and the revelation that faith receives. This understanding of knowledge suggests a gentle humility about what we can and cannot know through our own efforts, combined with gratitude for the additional light that revelation provides. As you settle into sleep tonight, you might reflect on the remarkable fact that your mind can grasp universal truths from particular experiences. The concepts you form, the connections you make, the understanding you achieve, all of these represent a profound harmony between your nature as a rational being and the rational structure of reality itself. Perhaps the most famous aspect of Thomas's philosophy is his systematic attempt to demonstrate God's existence through rational argument. These demonstrations, known as the 5 Ways, represent one of the most influential attempts in human history to show that belief in God is not merely a matter of faith, but can be supported by careful reasoning. Thomas approached this task with characteristic methodical precision. He did not attempt to prove everything about God at once, but focused on the more modest goal of showing that there must be some supreme being that explains the existence and order of the universe. The fuller understanding of God's nature, he believed, would require both continued philosophical reflection and the additional light of divine revelation. The first way begins with a simple observation about the world around us. Things change. The seasons cycle from spring to summer to autumn to winter. Living beings grow from infancy to maturity to old age. Water transforms from liquid to vapor to ice. Everywhere we look, we see things moving from potentiality to actuality, from what they might become to what they actually are. But Thomas noticed something crucial about this process of change. Nothing can actualize its own potential. A cold piece of metal cannot make itself hot. It requires something else, something already hot, to actualize its potential for heat. A seed cannot by itself grow into a tree. It needs soil, water, sunlight, and countless other factors to actualize its potential for growth. This leads to a profound insight. Every change requires something already actual to bring about the actualization of potential. But this creates a puzzle. If everything that changes is changed by another, then we seem to face an infinite chain changed by something else of changes, each being stretching back without end. Thomas argued that such an infinite regress is impossible, not because infinite series cannot exist, but because in this particular case, if there were no first source of change, there would be no change at all. It would be like trying to move a chain with infinite links but no one pulling it. The chain would never move, no matter how many links it contained. Therefore, Thomas concluded, there must be some first source of change that is itself unchanging, some pure actuality that can actualize the potential in other things without itself being changed. This unchanged changer, this source of all motion and change in the universe, is what everyone understands to be God. As you rest tonight, consider the gentle movements around you, the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe, the beating of your heart, the circulation of blood through your veins, even the slow thoughts drifting through your mind as sleep approaches. According to Thomas, each of these changes points back through an intricate web of causation to a source of change that is itself perfectly stable, perfectly at rest, perfectly actual. In the very changes that carry you toward sleep, you participate in a cosmic movement that finds its ultimate source in divine changelessness. The second way follows a similar pattern but focuses on efficient causation rather than change. Every effect has a cause, and that cause is itself the effect of some prior cause. Your thoughts are caused by neural activity, which is caused by chemical processes, which are caused by molecular interactions, and so on. But again, an infinite regress of causes seems impossible if we are to explain why anything happens at all. There must be, Thomas reasoned, some first efficient cause that begins the great chain of causation without itself being caused by anything else. This uncaused cause is what we call God. The third way perhaps cuts deepest into the mystery of existence itself. Thomas observed that everything in our experience is contingent. It exists, but it might not have existed. It came into being at some point and will pass away at some point. Even things that seem permanent, like mountains or stars, are ultimately temporary when viewed from the perspective of cosmic time. But if everything that exists is contingent, if everything might not have existed, then it seems possible that at some point nothing existed at all. And if nothing existed at one time, then nothing could exist now, since nothing comes from nothing. Yet here we are. Things do exist. Therefore, Thomas concluded, there must be some necessary being, some being that exists not contingently but necessarily, not temporarily but eternally. This necessary being, upon which all contingent beings depend for their existence, is God. The fourth and fifth ways approach the question from different angles, examining the degrees of perfection we observe in things and the evident design and purpose we see throughout the natural world. But all five arguments share the same basic structure. They begin with features of the world that anyone can observe, show that these features require explanation, and conclude that the best explanation points toward a supreme being that transcends the ordinary limitations of created things. These arguments have been debated for centuries, refined by some philosophers, and criticized by others, but regardless of whether you find them completely convincing, they represent something beautiful. They show a mind deeply committed to both reason and faith, seeking to build bridges between human understanding and divine mystery. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, you might reflect on the sheer improbability of your own existence, the countless contingent factors that had to align for you to be here, listening to these words, the vast web of causes and changes that brought you to this moment. According to Thomas, all of this complexity and contingency points beyond itself to a source of existence that is simple, necessary, and eternal. In recognizing your own contingent existence, you touch the edge of a mystery that reason can approach, but never fully grasp. Thomas's understanding of the human person reveals one of the most elegant and hopeful visions in all of philosophy. Rather than seeing human beings as merely complex animals, or as souls trapped in material bodies, Thomas offered a view that honors both our spiritual and physical dimensions, while showing they how a unified whole. At form, the heart of this vision lies Thomas's insight that human beings are composed of both soul and body, but not in the way we might initially imagine. The soul is not like a ghost inhabiting a machine, nor is it simply another word for the brain or nervous system. Instead, Thomas understood the soul as the form of the body, the organizing principle that makes a physical organism a living, into sensing, thinking being. Consider human how a sculptor takes raw marble and shapes it into a beautiful statue. The marble provides the material, the form, but imposed by the sculptor transforms mere stone. Similarly, Thomas into art argued, the human soul is what gives form and life to the matter of the human body. Without the soul, the body would be merely a collection of chemicals. Without the body, the soul would lack the means with the physical to interact world. This understanding suggests something profound about human nature. We are not accidents of evolution, nor are we purely beings temporarily spiritual imprisoned in flesh. We are embodied souls, creatures designed for both material and spiritual existence. Our bodies are not obstacles to our true selves, but integral parts of who we are. This has beautiful implications for how we should understand our daily experience. When you taste food, it is not merely your body having a sensory experience while your soul remains aloof. Your entire person, body and soul united, participates in the act of tasting. When you think about mathematics or poetry, it is not only your soul that thinks while your body stands idle. Your whole being, including your brain and nervous system, participates in the act of understanding. Thomas's view also suggests why human beings seem to exist at the intersection of two worlds. We share with plants the ability to grow and maintain ourselves. We share with animals the ability to sense our environment and respond to it. But uniquely among material creatures, we also possess intellect and will. We can grasp universal truths, make moral choices, and orient ourselves toward goods that transcend immediate physical needs. This capacity for transcendence, Thomas believed, points towards something remarkable about human destiny. Unlike plants and animals which achieve their fulfillment within the bounds of their earthly existence, human beings seem oriented toward a fulfillment that exceeds what any finite, temporal existence can provide. Our minds can conceive of perfect truth, perfect beauty, perfect goodness, even though we never encounter these perfections fully realized in our earthly experience. The intellect, Thomas observed, is in principle capable of knowing all truth. Not that any individual human can actually achieve such comprehensive knowledge, but that there is something about the nature of mind itself that is oriented toward unlimited truth. Similarly, the will is oriented toward unlimited good. We can always ask whether there might be something better than whatever good we currently possess. This suggests that human beings are naturally oriented toward God, even when they do not explicitly recognize this orientation. The restlessness of the human heart, our perpetual searching for something more, our dissatisfaction with finite goods, all of these point toward our ultimate destiny in union with infinite truth and goodness. As you settle into rest tonight, consider the remarkable unity of your own being. The thoughts drifting through your mind, the sensations of comfort as you settle into your bed, the gentle rhythm of your breathing, all of these are expressions of a single integrated person. You are not a soul using a body or a body producing a soul, but a unified being in which material and spiritual aspects work together in profound harmony. Thomas's understanding of the human person naturally led him to deep reflection on how we should live our lives. His moral philosophy, often called virtue ethics, focuses not primarily on rules or consequences, but on the kinds of persons we should become. The central question is not simply, what should I do, but what kind of person should I be? At the foundation of Thomas's ethics lies the concept of the natural law. This is not a set of arbitrary commands imposed from outside, but rather the way rational creatures participate in God's eternal plan for creation. Just as physical things have natural tendencies that guide their behavior, rational beings have natural inclinations that point toward their proper fulfillment. Human beings, Thomas observed, naturally seek to preserve their existence, to live in community with others, and to know truth, including truth about God. These basic inclinations are not mere biological drives, but rational orientations that point toward genuine human flourishing. The natural law consists in the rational recognition and proper ordering of these natural inclinations. But Thomas was careful to distinguish between what comes naturally to us in our current condition and what is truly natural to human beings as such. We may naturally tend towards selfishness, anger, or despair, but these tendencies result from the disorder introduced by sin and circumstance rather than from our deepest nature as rational beings created for relationship with God and neighbour. The goal of moral development, therefore, is to align our actual behaviour with our deepest nature as rational, social, spiritual beings. This happens through the cultivation of virtue, settled dispositions that enable us to act consistently in accordance with right reason and genuine love. Thomas identified 4 cardinal virtues that serve as hinges upon which all moral excellence depends. Prudence is the virtue of practical wisdom, the ability to discern what should be done in particular circumstances. Justice involves giving each person what is owed to them, respecting their dignity and rights. Fortitude enables us to persevere in doing good, even when it is difficult or dangerous. Temperance helps us enjoy good things in appropriate measure without being enslaved by our appetites. These natural virtues, Thomas believed, can be cultivated through human effort, though they are perfected and elevated through divine grace. Alongside them, he recognized 3 theological virtues that are pure gifts of God's grace. Faith enables us to assent to truths revealed by God. Hope orients us toward our ultimate fulfillment in divine union. Charity, the greatest of the virtues, enables us to love God for his own sake and to love our neighbours as ourselves. The cultivation of virtue is not a grim duty, but a joyful participation in our own authentic development. As we grow in virtue, we become more fully ourselves, more capable of the kind of relationships and activities that bring deep satisfaction. The virtuous person is not constrained by morality, but liberated by it, free to pursue genuine goods without being deflected by counterfeits. Consider how this applies to your own daily choices. When you show patience with a difficult person, you're not merely following a rule, but developing the kind of character that can maintain loving relationships even under stress. When you persevere in work that serves others, even when you do not feel like it, you are strengthening the fortitude that enables you to contribute meaningfully to the common good. When you enjoy food, friendship, or beauty without excess, you're practicing the temperance that allows you to receive these gifts as they are meant to be received. Thomas's vision of the moral life is ultimately hopeful because it recognizes that we are made for goodness, truth, and beauty. Our moral struggles are not signs that we are fundamentally flawed, but evidence that we are oriented towards something higher than our current condition. Every act of virtue, however small, participates in the great movement of creation toward its ultimate fulfillment in God. As you prepare for sleep, you might reflect gently on the choices you made today, not with harsh judgment, but with the kind of loving attention Thomas would encourage. Where did you act in ways that expressed your deepest nature as a rational spiritual being? Where did you fall short of that ideal? Both the successes and the failures can become occasions for growth in self-knowledge and virtue. The gentle rhythm of moral development continues even as you rest. In sleep, the day's experiences settle into memory, patterns of choice become more deeply ingrained, and your character continues its slow formation. Thomas would remind us that this formation happens not alone efforts through our, but through the mysterious cooperation of human freedom and divine grace, working together to shape us into the persons we're called to become. Thomas's understanding of political life flows naturally from his insights about human nature and beings, and moral development. Human, he observed, are naturally social creatures. We are not self-sufficient individuals who happen to find it convenient to live together, but beings whose very nature finds fulfillment only in relationship with others. This social dimension of human nature means that political authority serves a genuinely natural function. Government exists not merely to prevent chaos or protect property, but to help create the conditions in which human beings can flourish together. The state has a positive role in promoting the common good, the shared conditions that enable all members of society to develop their potential. But Thomas was equally clear that political authority has limits. Governments derive their legitimacy from their service to the common good, and rulers who systematically violate this trust lose their moral authority. The state exists for the sake of human persons, not the reverse. This vision of politics is both idealistic and realistic. It calls rulers to high standards of justice and service, while recognizing that human sinfulness makes perfect government impossible in this life. It encourages active participation in political life as a form of service to the common good, while maintaining healthy skepticism about any earthly power's claim to ultimate authority. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you rest within communities that shape and sustain your life in countless ways. The language you think in, the values you hold, the opportunities available to you, all of these reflect the social nature that Thomas saw as fundamental to human existence. In recognizing our dependence on others, we discover not limitation but the profound interconnectedness that makes genuine human flourishing possible. Thomas's vision of human fulfillment reaches beyond the boundaries of earthly life into questions that have stirred the human heart since consciousness first gazed upon the stars. What happens when we die? Is there meaning that transcends the brief span of our mortal existence? Can finite beings ever truly find rest in infinite mystery? For Thomas, these were not idle speculations but urgent questions that flow directly from his understanding of human nature. If we are indeed rational beings naturally oriented toward unlimited truth and goodness, then our deepest longings cannot be satisfied by anything finite or temporary. The very structure of human desire points beyond boundaries of earthly existence, considered itself toward a fulfillment that exceeds the peculiar nature of human knowledge. Unlike animals, whose knowing seems perfectly adapted to their immediate survival needs, human beings can contemplate questions that have no practical bearing on their daily lives. We wonder about the age of the universe, the nature of consciousness, the possibility of life on distant worlds. We can spend hours lost in mathematical theorems or poetic images that serve no obvious biological purpose. This capacity for seemingly useless knowledge, Thomas suggests, reveals something profound about human destiny. We are not merely complex animals whose consciousness happened to evolve beyond practical necessity. We are beings whose minds are naturally proportioned to reality as such, to being itself in all its fullness. This suggests that our ultimate fulfillment lies not in mastering our environment, or even in achieving perfect earthly happiness, but in the direct contemplation of ultimate reality. But here Thomas encounters a beautiful paradox. The more clearly reason demonstrates that human beings are made for perfect knowledge of truth, the more obvious it becomes that such knowledge cannot be achieved through natural human powers alone. We can prove that God exists, but we cannot see God's essence directly. We can understand that perfect goodness must exist, but we cannot experience it fully through our own efforts. This creates what Thomas saw as a natural longing for something that nature alone cannot provide. It is as if we are beings naturally oriented toward a supernatural destiny, creatures whose deepest fulfillment requires a gift that exceeds the capacities of created nature. This gift, Thomas believed, is the vision of God face to face, the direct intellectual apprehension of divine essence that constitutes perfect blessedness. The doctrine of the resurrection of the body follows naturally from Thomas's understanding of human nature. If we are essentially embodied souls rather than souls temporarily trapped in bodies, then our ultimate fulfillment must involve the restoration of our complete nature. The separated soul that survives death is not the whole human person, but only a part, however important, of what we truly are. This understanding brings a gentle dignity to our present embodied existence. Our bodies are not merely temporary vessels, but integral parts of our identity that will be restored and perfected in the resurrection. The physical world is not a realm to be escaped, but the proper sphere of embodied spiritual beings who find God not by fleeing creation, but by discovering the divine presence within and through the material order. Thomas's eschatology, his understanding of ultimate things, maintains a careful balance between hope and humility. He affirms that human beings are indeed made for perfect happiness, for the direct vision of God that would satisfy every longing of mind and heart. but he also recognizes that such fulfillment transcends what any finite creature can claim as a right or achieve through its own efforts. This creates a posture of grateful receptivity rather than demanding entitlement. The ultimate meaning of human existence is found not in what we can accomplish for ourselves, but in what God chooses to share with us. Our highest dignity lies not in our independence, but in our capacity to receive and respond to divine love. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, consider the remarkable trajectory Thomas traces from the simplest observations about change and existence to the most sublime mysteries of human destiny. The same rational powers that enable you to understand mathematical relationships or navigate daily practical decisions also point you toward questions that stretch beyond the horizons of earthly life. The gentle fatigue that draws you towards sleep participates in the rhythm of embodied existence that Thomas saw as fundamentally good rather than regrettable. Your need for rest does not diminish your dignity as a rational being, but expresses the beautiful limitations that make you a creature rather than the creator. In accepting these limitations gracefully, you participate in the fundamental stance of receptivity that Thomas saw as the doorway to ultimate fulfillment. Perhaps no aspect of Thomas's thought has proven more enduringly influential than his understanding of the relationship between reason and faith. In an age when these two sources of truth are often seen as opposed, Thomas offers a vision of their fundamental harmony that continues to illuminate minds across centuries and cultures. Thomas began with the conviction that truth cannot contradict truth. Since God is the source of both the natural order that reason investigates and the supernatural revelation that faith receives, these two paths to truth must ultimately converge rather than conflict. Apparent contradictions between reason and faith indicate either that our reasoning has gone astray or that we have misunderstood what revelation actually teaches. This principle liberated Thomas to pursue philosophical inquiry with complete intellectual honesty, while maintaining firm commitment to revealed truth. He could follow arguments wherever they led because he trusted that honest inquiry would never ultimately undermine authentic faith. Similarly, he could embrace the insights of pagan philosophers like Aristotle because he recognized that truth belongs to no single tradition, but shines wherever minds honestly engage with reality. But Thomas was careful to maintain the distinction between what reason can discover and what faith receives as gift. Reason can demonstrate that God exists, but it cannot reveal that God is Trinity. Reason can establish principles of natural law, but it cannot discover the full depth of divine mercy. Reason can prove the immortality of the soul, but it cannot unveil the mystery of resurrection. This creates what Thomas saw as a beautiful complementarity, rather than a competitive relationship. Reason prepares the way for faith by establishing the credibility of belief and by clearing away intellectual obstacles to acceptance of revealed truth. Faith, in turn, provides reason with new data to explore, and with the confidence that reality is ultimately intelligible rather than absurd. The practical implications of this harmony between reason and faith extend into every area of human life. In pursuing scientific knowledge, we need not fear that discovery will undermine our deepest convictions about meaning and value. In exploring philosophical questions, we can follow arguments with intellectual courage while remaining open to insights that transcend what unaided reason can achieve. This vision encourages a particular kind of intellectual humility that Thomas exemplified throughout his career. He was confident in reason's power to attain truth, but equally aware of reason's limitations. He was committed to revealed truth, but equally committed to understanding that truth as clearly and precisely as possible rather than accepting. When you encounter ideas, it blindly. Consider how this applies to your own intellectual life that challenge your assumptions. Thomas would encourage you to examine them carefully, rather than dismissing them defensively. When you find your understanding of important questions deepening through study and reflection, he would remind you that this growth itself points toward the inexhaustible richness of truth that transcends any finite mind's complete comprehension. The harmony between reason and faith also suggests a particular approach to disagreement and dialogue. If truth is one, then genuine seekers after truth are ultimately allies rather than enemies, even when they arrive at different conclusions. This calls for patient engagement with opposing viewpoints, careful attention to the strongest versions of positions we are inclined to reject, and generous recognition of partial insights even within fundamentally flawed systems of thought. Thomas himself modelled this approach in his treatment of thinkers with whom he disagreed. He would typically present their positions in their strongest form before offering his own critique, often acknowledging genuine insights even while rejecting their overall conclusions. This intellectual generosity flowed from his confidence that truth itself is strong enough to emerge from honest dialogue, rather than requiring defensive protection from challenging questions. As you prepare for sleep, you might reflect on the questions that occupy your own mind during quiet moments. The relationship between scientific discovery and spiritual meaning, the connection between moral convictions and rational argument, the possibility of finding unity beneath the apparent chaos of competing worldviews. Thomas suggests that these tensions need not be resolved by choosing sides, but can be held together in a larger vision that honours both the power of human reason and the mystery of divine revelation. The gentle process of falling asleep itself illustrates something of this harmony. Your rational mind gradually releases its grip on waking consciousness, but this is not a defeat of reason by irrationality. Instead, it is a natural rhythm that allows different aspects of your being to find their proper place. Dreams may bring insights that elude systematic analysis, just as systematic analysis brings clarity that intuition alone cannot provide. In Thomas's vision, the ultimate harmony between reason and faith awaits eschatological fulfillment, when finite minds will be elevated to participate directly in divine knowledge. But even now, in our present condition, we can experience foretastes of that harmony whenever honest inquiry and humble receptivity work together to deepen our understanding of truth. The practical wisdom that Thomas developed throughout his vast corpus of writings touches every aspect of human experience, offering gentle guidance for souls seeking to live well in a complex world. His approach to practical questions flows directly from his theoretical insights about human nature, moral development, and ultimate destiny, but it addresses the concrete circumstances in which we actually make choices and form relationships. Thomas understood that moral wisdom cannot be reduced to abstract principles, but must be applied through the virtue of prudence to the particular situations we encounter. This requires not only knowledge of general moral truths, but also careful attention to circumstances, consequences, and the complex web of relationships within which every choice is embedded. Consider his approach to economic life. Thomas recognized that material goods are necessary for human flourishing, and that legitimate commerce serves the common good by enabling people to exchange what they have in surplus for what they need. But he also saw the dangers of treating wealth as an end in itself, rather than as a means to authentic human development. This led to nuanced discussions of just pricing, fair wages, and the proper use of private property. Thomas defended the right to private ownership, while insisting that those who possess more than they need have obligations to assist those in genuine want. He approved of profit in legitimate business, while condemning practices that exploit human vulnerability or undermine social trust. These economic insights flow from his broader understanding that human beings are both individual persons with inherent dignity and social creatures who find fulfillment only in relationship with others. This creates a dynamic tension between legitimate self-care and genuine concern for the common good, a tension that must be navigated through practical wisdom rather than resolved through simple formulas. Thomas's approach to family life reveals similar practical wisdom, grounded in deep theoretical insight. He understood marriage as both a natural institution that serves human flourishing and a sacramental reality that participates in divine love. This dual nature means that marital relationships operate simultaneously, according to natural principles that reason can discern and supernatural principles that faith receives. The practical implications include both realistic expectations about the challenges of intimate relationship and elevated vision of its ultimate purpose. Spouses are called to mutual service and authentic friendship, but they are also invited to discover in their love for each other a reflection of God's love for creation and Christ's love for the Church. Similarly, Thomas's understanding of parental responsibility balances natural affection with rational guidance. Parents love their children instinctively, but they must also form instruction and guru their children's character through patient example. The goal is not merely to ensure survival and success, but to prepare children for their own authentic human fulfillment in approach to friendship, relationship with God and neighbour. His reveals perhaps the most beautiful aspects of his practical wisdom. Thomas saw friendship as one of the highest forms of human relationship, involving mutual affection, shared activity in pursuit of good, and genuine concern for the friend's welfare. True friendship requires virtue in both parties, since only virtuous people can consistently will genuine good for others. But Thomas distinguished between different kinds of friendship based on their objects. Friendships based primarily on pleasure or utility, while legitimate remain relatively shallow and unstable. The deepest friendships are those based on shared commitment to virtue and truth, relationships in which friends help each other become better people through mutual encouragement and gentle correction. The highest form of friendship, Thomas believed, is the friendship offered to human beings by God Himself. This divine friendship transforms human relationships by enabling people to love others not merely for natural reasons, but as participants in the life of God. Such love can extend even to enemies, and can persist even when natural affection is strained or absent. As you settle into the quiet of approaching sleep, consider the relationships that shape your daily experience. The family members who share your home, the friends who offer companionship and support, the colleagues and neighbours who contribute to the communities in which you participate. Thomas would encourage you to see all of these relationships as opportunities for growth in virtue and service to the common good. The practical wisdom he offers is not a burden of additional obligations, but an invitation to discover deeper meaning and satisfaction in the roles you already occupy. When you show patience with a difficult family member, you practice the virtue of fortitude while contributing to domestic peace. When you listen carefully to a friend's concerns, you express the justice that gives each person appropriate attention while deepening the bonds of mutual affection. Even the simple act of preparing for sleep can be approached with the kind of practical wisdom Thomas advocated. You care for your body by providing the rest it needs. You prepare your mind for tomorrow's challenges by releasing today's anxieties, and you open your heart to the divine presence that sustains you through every moment of consciousness and unconsciousness alike. The gentle rhythm of practical wisdom continues even in sleep, as the day's choices settle into patterns of character, and the relationships you have nurtured continue to influence your dreams and rest. Thomas reminds us that there is no aspect of human experience, however ordinary, that cannot become an occasion for growth in virtue and deeper participation in the mystery of divine love. The influence of Thomas Aquinas extends far beyond the medieval world in which he lived, reaching across centuries to shape minds and institutions in ways both obvious and subtle. His synthesis of reason and faith provided a foundation that would support the development of universities, guide the formation of legal systems, and inspire countless thinkers to pursue truth with both intellectual rigour and spiritual depth. In the centuries immediately following Thomas's death, his ideas faced resistance from various quarters. Some traditionalists worried that his embrace of Aristotelian philosophy introduced dangerous pagan elements into Christian thought. Others found his systematic approach too rigid, or his conclusions insufficiently mystical. The Franciscans, in particular, often preferred the more Augustinian approach of thinkers like Bonaventure, which emphasized divine illumination over natural reason. But gradually, the power and coherence of Thomas's vision won recognition. By the 14th century, his works were being studied and commented upon throughout Europe. The Dominican order, of which Thomas was a member, became particularly associated with his approach, producing generations of scholars who refined and developed his insights while remaining faithful to his fundamental principles. The Protestant Reformation brought new challenges and opportunities for Thomistic thought. While many reformers rejected what they saw as excessive reliance on human reason in theological matters, others found in Thomas's careful distinctions between nature and grace resources for understanding the relationship between divine sovereignty and human responsibility. Even those who disagreed with his conclusions often had to grapple seriously with the precision of his arguments and the comprehensiveness of his system. The Catholic Counter-Reformation saw a renewed interest in Thomas as a reliable guide through theological controversies. The Council of Trent frequently drew upon his distinctions and formulations in its doctrinal decrees. Jesuit schools throughout Europe made his Summa Theologica a central text in their curriculum, ensuring that his influence would spread wherever Catholic education flourished. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Thomas's enduring influence lies in how his ideas transcended the particular religious and cultural context in which they originated. His insights about the relationship between universal and particular, his understanding of natural law, his analysis of political authority, and his approach to practical reasoning proved applicable far beyond the bounds of medieval Christendom. Consider how his theory of natural law influenced the development of international law. When legal scholars sought principles that could govern relationships between different nations and cultures, they found in Thomas's understanding of natural law a foundation that did not depend on the particular customs or beliefs of any single society. The idea that rational beings can discern universal principles of justice through careful reflection on human nature provided a basis for legal systems that could claim validity across cultural boundaries. This influence extended into the political revolutions that shaped the modern world. When the American founders spoke of self-evident truths and unalienable rights, they drew upon a tradition of natural law thinking that traced back through centuries of development to Thomas's foundational insights. The idea that political authority derives its legitimacy from its service to the common good, rather than from mere power or tradition, owes much to his careful analysis of the nature and limits of government. Even in areas where later thinkers departed significantly from Thomas's conclusions, his methodology continued to influence how questions were approached. His insistence on careful definition of terms, systematic consideration of objections, and integration of insights from multiple sources became standard features of serious intellectual inquiry. The structure of university education, with its emphasis on disputation and synthesis, reflects patterns of thought that Thomas helped establish. The 19th and 20th centuries saw renewed interest in Thomas's philosophy, as thinkers sought alternatives to what they perceived as the limitations of purely secular approaches to knowledge and ethics. The neo-Thomistic movement, led by figures like Jacques Maritain and Etienne Gilson, argued that Thomas's insights remained relevant to contemporary questions about science, democracy, and human rights. This revival was not merely nostalgic, but involved serious engagement with modern developments in psychology, physics, and social theory. Neo-Thomists demonstrated how Thomas's fundamental principles could be applied to questions he never explicitly considered, showing the continuing fertility of his approach, rather than simply defending his particular conclusions. As you rest tonight, consider how the ideas flowing through your mind participate in conversations that stretch across centuries. The concepts you use to understand yourself and your world, the moral intuitions that guide your choices, the very structure of rational inquiry that enables you to make sense of experience. All of these bear the influence of thinkers like Thomas, who devoted their lives to understanding the deepest patterns of reality. This is not to suggest that we must accept all of Thomas's conclusions, or that his system requires no development or correction. But it does invite recognition that serious thinking about fundamental questions builds upon the work of previous generations rather than starting from scratch. The insights achieved by one brilliant mind become available to countless others, creating a kind of intellectual inheritance that enriches human understanding across time and culture. The practical applications of Thomistic principles continue to evolve in response to new circumstances and challenges. Contemporary discussions of medical ethics, environmental responsibility, economic justice, and international relations all draw upon resources that can be traced back to Thomas's foundational work on natural law, virtue, and the common good. His understanding of the human person as a unity of soul and body provides guidance for navigating questions about artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and the enhancement of human capabilities. His insights about the relationship between individual dignity and social responsibility offer frameworks for thinking about the proper scope of government intervention and the obligations modern societies, perhaps of citizenship in complex. Most importantly, Thomas's vision of the harmony between reason and faith continues to offer hope for those who refuse to accept that intellectual honesty and spiritual depth must be opposed. In an age often characterized by polarization between scientific materialism and religious fundamentalism, his example suggests the possibility of approaches that honor both the power of rational inquiry and the reality of transcendent mystery. The gentle confidence that pervades Thomas's work flows from his conviction that reality itself is intelligible, that the universe makes sense even when our finite minds cannot grasp its full meaning. This confidence enables patient inquiry rather than anxious defensiveness, generous dialogue rather than hostile debate, and humble wonder rather than presumptuous certainty. As sleep begins to claim your consciousness, allow yourself to rest within this larger tradition of seeking truth. The questions that occupy your mind during quiet moments are not yours alone, but participate in humanity's ongoing conversation about meaning, purpose, and ultimate reality. In joining that conversation, however modestly, you contribute to the great work of understanding that connects each generation to those who came before and those who will come after. The synthesis that Thomas achieved between the wisdom of antiquity and the insights of revelation suggests that truth is large enough to embrace apparent contradictions and patient enough to wait for minds capable of receiving it. His legacy invites us not to choose between reason and faith, philosophy and theology, natural knowledge and revealed truth, but to seek the deeper unity that encompasses and transcends all partial perspectives. In the rhythm of your breathing as you settle towards sleep, in the gradual release of waking consciousness into the mystery of dreams, you participate in patterns that Thomas would recognize as expressions of the same creative wisdom that orders the movements of stars and the cycles of seasons. The particular and the universal, the material and the spiritual, the temporal and the eternal, all find their proper relationship within a vision large enough to hold both human dignity and cosmic mystery. Thomas's approach to the great questions of human existence offers not final answers, but reliable methods for continuing the search. His confidence in reason's power to approach truth is balanced by humility about reason's limitations. His commitment to revealed truth is matched by openness to insights that may come from unexpected sources. His systematic precision serves not rigid dogmatism, but the patient love of wisdom that seeks understanding rather than mere victory in argument. The medieval world in which Thomas lived and worked has passed away, but the fundamental questions he addressed remain as urgent as ever. What does it mean to be human? How should we live together? What is our ultimate destiny? Can finite minds ever touch infinite mystery? These questions arise naturally from the structure of human consciousness itself, and cannot be dissolved by changes in technology or social organization. Thomas's contribution lies not in providing final answers, but in showing how such questions can be approached with both intellectual rigor and spiritual sensitivity. His methods remain available to anyone willing to engage seriously with the deepest puzzles of existence. His vision of the harmony between natural knowledge and revealed truth continues to inspire those who seek integration, rather than fragmentation, in their understanding of reality. As you drift deeper into the gentle embrace of sleep, carry with you something of Thomas's quiet confidence that the universe makes sense, even when its meaning exceeds our present comprehension. The same creative wisdom that sustains your existence through the mystery of sleep will guide you through tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. In resting trustfully within that larger mystery, you participate in the fundamental stance of receptivity that Thomas saw as the beginning of all genuine wisdom. The great cathedral of thought that Thomas constructed continues to offer shelter for minds seeking truth and hearts seeking meaning. Its arches span the apparent gulf between reason and faith, its foundations reach deep into the bedrock of human experience, and its spires point toward mysteries that exceed the grasp of any finite understanding. In entering that cathedral, even briefly, you join a communion of seekers that transcends the boundaries of time and culture. Tonight, as consciousness gradually fades into the deeper rhythms of sleep, let yourself rest within the larger rhythm of inquiry and wonder that connects all sincere seekers of truth. The questions Thomas explored with such patient care continue to invite exploration. The synthesis he achieved between philosophical rigor and theological depth continues to suggest possibilities for integration in our own fragmented age. The gentle confidence that pervaded his work continues to offer encouragement for those who refuse to abandon either honest thinking or humble faith. In the end, Thomas Aquinas offers not a system to be memorized, but an approach to be practiced, not conclusions to be defended, but methods to be employed, not answers to eliminate questions, but ways of living fruitfully within the questions that define human existence. His greatest gift may be the demonstration that intellectual excellence and spiritual depth can work together rather than in opposition, that the love of wisdom and the love of God are not competing loyalties but complementary expressions of the same fundamental orientation toward truth. As you settle into the peace of approaching sleep, surrounded by the quiet presence of ideas that have illuminated minds across centuries, remember that you too participate in the ongoing search for understanding that gives meaning to human consciousness. In your own small way, through your own honest questions and patient reflections, you continue the great conversation that Thomas joined so brilliantly, and that continues wherever minds meet mystery with both courage and humility. The gentle rhythm of scholastic wisdom continues its work even as you rest, weaving together the insights of reason and the whispers of faith into patterns of understanding that can sustain both mind and heart through the complexities of human existence. In that rhythm, find your rest tonight, knowing that the search for truth continues and that your own participation in that search, however modest, contributes to the great work of understanding that connects all seekers across time and eternity. The gentle cadence of Thomas's moral teaching extends into the most intimate corners of human experience, touching questions that arise in the quiet moments when we examine our own hearts. His understanding of conscience represents one of his most personally relevant contributions, offering guidance for souls wrestling with the ancient challenge of discerning right from wrong in the complexity of daily life. Thomas understood conscience not as an arbitrary voice whispering commands, but as the practical application of moral knowledge to particular circumstances. It is reason itself working to understand what should be done here and now given our understanding of human nature and the moral order that flows from it. Conscience, in this sense, is not separate from rational thought, but represents reason engaged with the practical question of how to live well. This understanding brings both dignity and responsibility to moral decision-making. Your conscience is not merely a collection of inherited taboos or social conventions, but your rational nature working to discern authentic good in the concrete circumstances of your life. When you feel the gentle tug of moral obligation, when something within you recognizes that a particular action would be wrong, even if no one would know, you experience the natural operation of practical reason responding to the moral structure of reality. But Thomas was equally clear that conscience can err. Just as our theoretical reasoning can reach false conclusions through faulty premises or flawed logic, our practical reasoning can lead us astray through ignorance, passion, or malformed habits of thought. This is why the formation of conscience requires not only good intentions, but patient education in moral truth and careful attention to the ways our desires and fears can cloud our judgment. The cultivation of a well-formed conscience becomes a lifelong project, requiring both intellectual development and spiritual growth. We must study the principles of moral reasoning, but we must also examine our own hearts with honest attention to the ways self-interest and emotion can distort our perception of moral truth. We need the input of wise counselors and the correction of moral communities, but ultimately each person must take responsibility for the judgments of conscience that guide their choices. This understanding suggests a particular approach to moral uncertainty, those moments when we genuinely cannot discern what the right course of action might be. Thomas counseled that we should gather the best information available, seek wise counsel when possible, pray for guidance if we are believers, and then act according to our best judgment, while remaining open to correction if additional clarity emerges. There is something deeply consoling in Thomas's recognition that moral certainty is not always possible in our present condition. The complexity of human circumstances often exceeds the clarity of moral principles, creating situations where good people may reasonably disagree about what should be done. This calls for humility about our own moral judgments and charity toward others who reach different conclusions while genuinely seeking to do what is right. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, consider the moral choices that have shaped your recent days, not with harsh self-criticism, but with the gentle attention Thomas would encourage. Where did your conscience speak clearly, and where did you listen well to its guidance? Where did you act against your better judgment, and what might that teach you about the formation of your own moral sensibilities? The very capacity for moral reflection that enables such examination is itself, Thomas would remind us, a participation in divine wisdom. The natural law written in rational nature connects your personal struggles with moral decision to the eternal law that orders all creation toward authentic fulfillment. In following conscience faithfully, you align yourself with the deepest currents of cosmic purpose. Thomas's vision of prayer and contemplation flows naturally from his understanding of human nature as oriented toward divine truth and love. Prayer, in his view, is not primarily about requesting specific favors from God, though such petitions have their proper place. Rather, prayer represents the natural movement of rational creatures toward their ultimate source and final destination. The foundation of authentic prayer lies in recognizing our fundamental dependence upon God for existence, knowledge, and moral guidance. This recognition is not a burden, but a liberation, freeing us from the impossible task of being our own ultimate ground, and opening us to receive the gifts that flow from divine generosity. Prayer begins in acknowledgement of our creatureliness and flowers into grateful receptivity to divine love. Thomas distinguished between different forms of prayer corresponding to different aspects of our relationship with God. There is the prayer of petition, in which we ask for what we need, recognizing that all genuine goods come ultimately from divine providence. There is the prayer of thanksgiving, in which we acknowledge the gifts already received and express gratitude for the countless ways divine love sustains our existence. There is the prayer of praise, in which we celebrate divine goodness for its own sake rather than for any benefit it brings to us. But perhaps most significant in Thomas's understanding is the prayer of contemplation, the simple resting of mind and heart in the presence of divine mystery. This form of prayer requires no special techniques or extraordinary experiences, though it may sometimes be accompanied by deep peace or spiritual consolation. It consists simply in turning our attention toward God with love, allowing our usual preoccupations to settle into stillness. Such contemplative prayer, Thomas believed, offers a foretaste of the direct vision of God that constitutes ultimate human fulfillment. Even in our present condition, when we cannot see God face to face, we can experience moments of peaceful awareness that hint at the deeper union awaiting us. These moments may come during formal prayer, but they may equally arise during quiet walks, reflective reading, or simple attentiveness to beauty in the natural world. The practice of contemplation gradually transforms our perspective on daily life. As we grow accustomed to brief periods of conscious attention to divine presence, we become more aware of that presence threading through ordinary activities. Work, relationships, and recreation can all become occasions for implicit communion with the God who sustains every moment of existence. Thomas was careful to emphasize that contemplative prayer is not an escape from practical responsibility, but a source of energy and wisdom for engaging more fully with the demands of daily life. Those who spend time in conscious communion with divine love find themselves better able to love others generously and to pursue justice patiently. Prayer and action support each other rather than competing for attention. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you might experiment with the kind of simple contemplative attention Thomas described. Without straining after extraordinary experiences, simply rest your awareness gently on the mystery of divine presence that sustains your existence. Allow the day's concerns to settle naturally without forcing them away. If your mind wanders, gently return attention to the quiet sense of being held within infinite love. The gradual transition from waking consciousness to sleep itself mirrors something of the contemplative movement Thomas valued. As rational control relaxes and deeper rhythms take over, we practice a kind of letting go that resembles the receptive stance essential to authentic prayer. In learning to rest trustfully in sleep, we develop capacities that serve us well in learning to rest trustfully in divine mystery. Thomas's understanding of beauty reveals another dimension of his remarkably integrated vision of reality. Beauty for him was not merely subjective preference or cultural convention, but a genuine aspect of being itself that rational creatures are naturally equipped to recognize and appreciate. The experience of beauty represents a particular way that finite minds can participate in divine perfection. 3 conditions, Thomas observed, are required for something to be beautiful. First, it must have integrity or wholeness, a completeness that satisfies our natural desire for unity. Second, it must have proper proportion, a harmony among its parts that pleases rational perception. Third, it must have clarity or brightness, a quality that makes its form readily apprehensible to the mind. These criteria apply not only to artistic creations but to natural objects, moral actions, and intellectual insights. A mathematical theorem can be beautiful when it demonstrates elegant relationships among seemingly diverse phenomena. A moral choice can be beautiful when it expresses perfect harmony between reason and will. Even a person can be beautiful not merely in physical appearance, but in the integration of their various powers and qualities. The capacity to recognize beauty, Thomas suggested, indicates something profound about human nature. Unlike purely practical evaluation, which asks whether something is useful for our purposes, Aesthetic appreciation seeks no advantage beyond the simple joy of contemplating what is intrinsically worthy of admiration. This suggests that human beings are not merely problem-solving creatures, but beings capable of finding fulfillment in the pure appreciation of goodness and truth. Beauty also serves as a bridge between sensible and intelligible reality. Through our eyes we see colours and shapes, through our ears we hear sounds and rhythms, but through our minds we apprehend the formal relationships that make sensible objects beautiful. In aesthetic experience, matter and spirit, sense and intellect, work together to create a unified response that engages our entire being. This understanding of beauty carries practical implications for how we structure our environments and activities. Thomas would encourage attention to the aesthetic dimension of daily life, not as luxury, but as nourishment for our nature as rational beings. The beauty of a well-ordered home, a carefully prepared meal, a thoughtfully chosen word, all contribute to the kind of environment in which human beings naturally flourish. The experience of beauty also points beyond itself toward ultimate reality. When we encounter something genuinely beautiful, we experience a satisfaction that is complete, yet somehow leaves us longing for more. The beautiful object fully rewards our attention, yet it also awakens awareness that there must be perfect beauty, of which earthly beauties are partial reflections. This creates what Thomas saw as a natural movement from appreciation of created beauty toward love of the divine beauty from which all finite beauty derives. The sunset that takes your breath away, the piece of music that moves you to tears, the human face that radiates goodness, all of these invite recognition that beauty itself must have its source in perfect beauty. As you settle into rest tonight, allow your awareness to touch gently on the beautiful things you encountered during the day. Perhaps the play of light through a window, the sound of laughter, the graceful movement of a bird, the kindness in someone's eyes. Thomas would encourage you to receive these experiences not merely as pleasant sensations, but as invitations to deeper appreciation of the beauty that structures reality at every level. The very rhythm of your breathing as you prepare for sleep participates in the kind of natural harmony that Thomas recognized as beautiful. The way consciousness gradually releases its grip on waking concerns, the gentle surrender to rest, the peaceful cycling between tension and relaxation, all express the kind of proportion and integrity that mark authentic beauty. Even in dreams, Thomas believed, the mind continues its natural movement toward truth and beauty, processing the day's experiences and sometimes arriving at insights that elude waking analysis. The imagination, freed from the constraints of immediate practical concerns, can explore combinations and relationships that reveal new aspects of the beautiful order underlying apparent chaos. Thomas's approach to suffering represents perhaps the most personally challenging aspect of his philosophy, touching questions that arise inevitably in any honest examination of human existence. Why do good people experience pain? How can a loving God permit evil? What meaning can be found in experiences that seem to serve no constructive purpose? Thomas began with the observation that suffering is indeed a genuine evil, not something to be explained away or minimized. Pain, loss, disappointment, and death are real privations of good, genuine obstacles to human flourishing. Any adequate response to suffering must acknowledge its reality, rather than dismissing it as illusion or disguising it as hidden blessing. But Thomas distinguished between different kinds of evil and different possible responses to each. Some suffering results from the natural limitations of finite existence. We grow old, we become ill, we face the deaths of those we love simply because we are creatures rather than the Creator. Such suffering is not punishment for wrongdoing, but the inevitable accompaniment of embodied existence in a world governed by natural laws. Other suffering results from moral evil, the deliberate choices of rational beings to act against their own deepest nature and the good of others. Such suffering can often be prevented through better choices, more just social arrangements, and the cultivation of virtue. While we cannot eliminate moral evil entirely in this life, we can work to reduce its effects and to respond to it in ways that promote healing, rather than perpetuating cycles of harm. The most difficult cases involve suffering that seems to serve no constructive purpose, that cannot be prevented through human effort, and that falls upon people who have done nothing to deserve it. Here, Thomas acknowledged the limits of human understanding, while maintaining confidence that divine providence somehow encompasses even apparently meaningless suffering within a larger plan that exceeds finite comprehension. This does not mean that suffering is always good, or that we should be passive in the face of preventable pain. Thomas strongly supported efforts to relieve suffering where possible, and to create conditions that promote human flourishing. But he also recognized that some suffering cannot be avoided, and must be endured with as much grace and courage as we can manage. The key insight Thomas offered is that suffering need not destroy the meaning of human existence if it is integrated into a larger vision that extends beyond earthly life. If our ultimate destiny lies in direct union with divine love, then present sufferings, however severe, cannot ultimately defeat the purposes for which we were created. This perspective does not make suffering less painful, but it can prevent suffering from becoming the final word about human existence. Thomas also observed that suffering often serves as a teacher, revealing aspects of reality and of our own nature that remain hidden during times of ease and success. In facing limitations, we discover the extent of our dependence on others and on divine grace. In confronting loss, we learn to appreciate more fully the gifts that remain. In experiencing our own weakness, we develop compassion for others who struggle. Such learning does not justify suffering or make it intrinsically good, but it can help transform unavoidable suffering into occasions for growth in wisdom and virtue. The person who faces illness with patience, who responds to loss with deeper appreciation for what remains, who meets injustice with commitment to work for justice, discovers that suffering need not have the last word about the meaning of their existence. As you rest tonight, you carry with you whatever sufferings have marked your own journey. Thomas would encourage you neither to minimize their reality, nor to allow them to eclipse your awareness of the goods that also characterize your existence. In the gentle darkness that surrounds sleep, both pain and comfort find their place within the larger mystery of an existence that exceeds our complete understanding. The rhythm of rest itself offers a kind of healing that does not require our conscious effort or understanding. In sleep, the day's wounds begin their quiet mending, relationships find their proper perspective, and the resilience that enables us to face tomorrow's challenges slowly renews itself. Thomas would see in this natural process a sign of the deeper healing that awaits us when finite existence gives way to the direct vision of divine love. The mystery of time occupied a central place in Thomas's reflection on human existence and divine eternity. Unlike many philosophers who saw time as illusion or imperfection, Thomas understood temporal existence as a genuine aspect of created reality that reflects divine wisdom in its own proper mode. For embodied rational creatures, time is not a prison but the natural medium within which growth, relationship, and authentic development can occur. Thomas distinguished carefully between time as experienced by material creatures and the eternal mode of existence that belongs to God alone. Eternity, in his understanding, is not simply endless time, but a completely different mode of existence in which past, present, and future are simultaneously present in a single, perfect act of being. God does not experience temporal succession, but knows and loves all of creation in one eternal moment that encompasses all times without being limited by any of them. This distinction helps address some of the puzzles that arise when we try to understand divine providence and human freedom. From our temporal perspective, we experience genuine choices and open possibilities. The future seems undetermined, and our decisions appear to make real differences in how events unfold. From the eternal perspective, all of history is simultaneously present to divine knowledge, but this does not eliminate human freedom any more than your present knowledge of past events eliminates the freedom with which those past choices were made. For creatures like ourselves, time provides the necessary framework within which authentic development can occur. We cannot become virtuous all at once, but must gradually form good habits through repeated choices. We cannot achieve deep relationships instantly, but must build trust and understanding through shared experiences over time. We cannot grasp complex truths immediately, but must approach them step by step through patient inquiry. This suggests that temporal existence, far from being a limitation we should seek to escape, represents the appropriate mode of life for rational creatures who are also material beings. The rhythm of time, with its cycles of work and rest, growth and maturation, learning and teaching, provides the natural structure within which human life can achieve its proper fulfillment. Thomas also recognized that temporal existence creates particular challenges and opportunities. Because we exist in time, We must make choices without complete knowledge of their consequences. We must act on the basis of limited information while remaining open to new insights that may require us to revise our understanding. We must balance present responsibilities with long-term goals, immediate pleasures with enduring goods. The experience of temporality also generates some of the deepest human longings. We wish we could hold on to beautiful moments, preserve beloved relationships unchanged, and avoid the losses that time inevitably brings. Yet Thomas suggested that these very longings point toward our ultimate destiny in divine eternity, where all genuine goods will be possessed simultaneously, without loss or diminution. Meanwhile, our present temporal existence offers its own unique gifts. The anticipation of future goods, the memory of past joys, the gradual unfolding of understanding and love over time, all contribute to the richness of human experience in ways that would be impossible in a purely eternal mode of existence. We are creatures designed to find fulfillment through temporal development rather than despite it. As you settle into sleep tonight, consider how the gentle progression of time has shaped your own growth and understanding. The person you are now represents the accumulation of countless moments of choice, experience, and reflection, stretching back to your earliest memories. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities for development that cannot be rushed or forced, but must unfold according to their natural rhythm. The very process of falling asleep illustrates the gift of temporality. Consciousness does not simply switch off, but gradually fades through stages of decreasing awareness. Dreams may compress or extend temporal experience in strange ways, but they still unfold in sequence. Even in rest, you remain a temporal being, participating in the natural rhythms that structure all embodied existence. Thomas's vision suggests that this temporal dimension of your existence is not an accident or a limitation, but a reflection of divine wisdom that creates different kinds of beings for different kinds of perfectly in the larger order of creation while action. In accepting your nature as a temporal creature, you participate appropriately preparing for the eternal fulfillment that awaits beyond time. The intersection of individual existence and cosmic purpose occupied much of Thomas's attention as he sought to understand how particular human lives fit within the vast scope of divine providence. Each person, he believed, is called to play a unique role in the unfolding of creation's return to God, a role that no one else can fulfill and that contributes irreplaceably to the common good of the whole. This vision begins with the recognition that every human person possesses inherent dignity that cannot be reduced to their usefulness for social purposes or their success in achieving external goals. Each person is loved by God for their own sake, called to their own authentic fulfillment, and destined for their own unique participation in divine life. This dignity belongs equally to all human beings regardless of their circumstances, abilities, or achievements. But Thomas was equally clear that individual fulfillment cannot be separated from the good of the communities and relationships within which each person lives. Human beings are naturally social creatures who find their own good only in seeking the good of others and contributing to shared purposes larger than themselves. Personal fulfillment and social responsibility are not competing values, but complementary aspects of authentic human development. This creates what Thomas saw as a beautiful harmony between self-love and love of neighbour. When we truly understand our own nature and destiny, we recognize that we cannot achieve authentic fulfillment by pursuing our own interests in isolation from or opposition to others. Our deepest good includes the good of those around us, just as their deepest good includes our own flourishing. The practical implications extend into every aspect of daily life. In family relationships, genuine love seeks the authentic good of each family member, while also promoting the harmony and stability of the household as a whole. In professional life, authentic success includes not only personal achievement, but contribution to purposes that serve others. In civic life, good citizenship requires attention to both individual rights and common responsibilities. This vision suggests a particular approach to life planning and decision-making that balances attention to personal calling with awareness of social needs. Thomas would encourage each person to discern their unique gifts and inclinations, while also considering how these might be developed in ways that serve the larger community. The goal is not conformity to external expectations, but the discovery of authentic personal vocation that also contributes to common flourishing. Such discernment requires both self-knowledge and social awareness. We must understand our own talents and limitations, But we must also pay attention to the needs and opportunities present in our particular historical circumstances. The same basic human capacities may be called to different expressions depending on the challenges and possibilities of different times and places. Thomas also recognized that individual callings may change over time as we mature, as circumstances shift, and as we gain deeper understanding of our own nature and purpose. The young person choosing a career, the parent adapting to changing family needs, the older adult facing retirement, all face decisions about how to direct their energies in ways that serve both personal fulfillment and social good. Prayer and reflection play important roles in such discernment, not because God provides detailed instructions about practical choices, but because attention to divine presence helps clarify our deepest values and longest-term purposes. When we see our individual existence within the context of divine providence, we gain perspective on which concerns are genuinely important and which may be distracting us from authentic priorities. Community input also proves essential, since others often see aspects of our gifts and calling that remain invisible to us. The feedback of family members, friends, mentors, and colleagues can help confirm or correct our own sense of where our energies are best directed. Such input must be weighed carefully against our own interior sense of calling, but it provides valuable information for wise decision-making. As you prepare for sleep tonight, consider how your own life participates in the larger purposes Thomas described. The work you do, the relationships you maintain, the choices you make about how to spend your time and energy, all contribute in some way to the vast network of human interaction that shapes the common good of the communities to which you belong. Even the simple act of seeking rest when you need it serves purposes larger than immediate personal comfort. By caring for your health and energy, you maintain your capacity to serve others well. By modeling appropriate self-care, you encourage others to take similar responsibility for their own well-being. By participating in the natural rhythm of work and rest, you align yourself with patterns that sustain all healthy communities. The gentle transition into sleep itself reflects something of the harmony between individual need and cosmic order that Thomas saw as fundamental to authentic existence. Your personal requirement for rest coincides with natural rhythms that govern all embodied life. In following these rhythms trustfully, you participate appropriately in the larger dance of creation, while also caring for the particular needs of your own nature. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to discover how your unique gifts and circumstances can contribute to purposes larger than yourself, while also promoting your own authentic development. Thomas's vision suggests that these two goals need not compete, but can be pursued together through the patient discernment and generous love that characterize mature human existence. Thomas's exploration of the relationship between individual conscience and universal truth reveals one of the most delicate aspects of his moral philosophy. He recognized that each person must ultimately take responsibility for their own moral choices, yet he also maintained that moral truth exists independently of individual opinion or cultural preference. This creates a creative tension that requires both personal integrity and intellectual humility. The formation of conscience, Thomas understood, is not a private affair but occurs within communities of learning and moral reflection. We develop our capacity for moral judgment through conversation with others, through studying the wisdom of previous generations, and through careful attention to the consequences of different choices over time. No one achieves moral maturity in isolation from the broader human conversation about how life should be lived. Yet Thomas was equally clear that this social dimension of moral development cannot replace individual responsibility. Each person must ultimately make their own choices and answer for the direction of their life. External authorities, whether religious or secular, can provide guidance and correction, but they cannot substitute for the personal work of understanding and applying moral principles to particular circumstances. This understanding suggests a particular approach to moral disagreement that balances conviction with openness. When we encounter others who hold different moral views, Thomas would encourage us to engage seriously with their reasoning while maintaining commitment to our own best understanding of moral truth. Such engagement may lead us to revise our positions, or it may deepen our confidence in conclusions we already hold, but it should always proceed with respect for the dignity of those with whom we disagree. The practical implications extend into some of the most challenging areas of contemporary moral debate. Questions about economic justice, medical ethics, environmental responsibility, and social policy often involve complex factual considerations alongside fundamental disagreements about values and priorities. Thomas's approach suggests that progress on such questions requires both careful attention to empirical evidence and patient dialogue about underlying principles. His understanding of natural law provides a framework for such dialogue without requiring agreement on specific religious beliefs or cultural traditions. If human beings share a common nature, then they also share fundamental interests and needs that can serve as starting points for moral reasoning. This does not guarantee that all moral questions have clear answers that everyone will accept, but it does suggest that rational dialogue about moral issues is possible and worthwhile. As you rest tonight, consider the moral choices that have shaped your character over time, not with harsh judgment, but with the kind of gentle attention that seeks understanding rather than condemnation. Where have you acted in ways that expressed your deepest convictions about what it means to live well? Where have you fallen short of those ideals, and what might those failures teach you about areas for continued growth? The gradual formation of character that Thomas described continues even during sleep, as the day's choices settle into patterns of habit, and the relationships you have maintained continue to influence your unconscious mind. In the mysterious process of rest and renewal, moral insights may emerge that were not available to conscious reflection, and the resolution to live more faithfully to your ideals may quietly strengthen. Thomas's understanding of human creativity reveals another dimension of his vision of rational beings made in the image of God. Creativity for him was not merely artistic skill or innovative problem-solving, but a fundamental capacity that reflects our participation in divine creativity itself. Human beings are not simply passive recipients of an already completed creation, but active participants in the ongoing creative work that continues to unfold throughout history. This capacity for creativity manifests itself in countless ways throughout human life. The parent guiding a child's development exercises creativity in adapting general principles of education to the particular needs and gifts of an individual person. The craftsperson shaping wood or metal into useful and beautiful objects participates in the transformation of raw materials into forms that serve human purposes. The scientist discovering new relationships among natural phenomena reveals previously hidden aspects of created order. Even seemingly ordinary activities involve genuine creativity when approached with attention and care. Preparing a meal requires creative adaptation of recipes to available ingredients, and the preferences of those who will share the food. Maintaining a household involves creative solutions to practical problems and aesthetic choices that shape the environment in which family life unfolds. Carrying on a conversation requires creative attention to the particular person you're addressing, and creative selection of words that will communicate your meaning effectively. Thomas understood such creativity as a participation in divine activity, rather than a competing alternative to it. When human beings exercise their creative capacities well, they cooperate with divine providence in bringing about goods that serve authentic human flourishing. This cooperation does not diminish human dignity, but elevates it, making rational creatures genuine partners in the ongoing work of creation. The recognition of creativity as participation in divine activity also suggests appropriate limits and responsibilities. Human creativity should serve genuine goods rather than merely satisfying personal preferences or pursuing novelty for its own sake. The artist, the inventor, the policymaker, and the parent all exercise creative power that can promote human flourishing or undermine it, depending on how that power is directed. This understanding implies a particular approach to the development of creative abilities. Technical skill and innovative thinking are important, but they must be guided by wisdom about what kinds of goods are worth pursuing and what kinds of methods are appropriate for achieving them. The most profound creativity emerges when technical competence is united with moral insight and spiritual depth. Thomas also recognized that creativity often involves a kind of receptive attention that allows new possibilities to emerge rather than forcing predetermined outcomes. The best artists, teachers, and leaders learn to balance intentional effort with openness to insights and opportunities that cannot be manufactured through willpower alone. This suggests that authentic creativity requires a kind of humble confidence, working diligently while remaining open to gifts that exceed our own efforts. As you settle into rest tonight, consider the creative opportunities that filled your day. Perhaps you solved a problem in an inventive way, offered comfort to someone in distress, or simply arranged familiar objects in a manner that brought beauty to your environment. Thomas would encourage you to see such activities not as mere practical necessities, but as participations in the creative work that gives meaning to rational existence. The process of dreaming itself represents a fascinating form of creativity in which the mind continues its work of synthesis and exploration without conscious direction. In dreams, memories combine in novel ways, symbols emerge that capture aspects of experience not easily expressed in ordinary language, and solutions sometimes appear to problems that baffled waking analysis. While not all dreams carry significant meaning, the capacity for such unconscious creativity reflects something profound about the nature of rational beings. The creative dimension of human existence also points toward ultimate fulfillment in divine union. If our present creativity represents participation in divine activity, then perfect union with God would involve perfect participation in divine creativity itself. This suggests that eternal life will not be static contemplation, but dynamic involvement in creative activity that exceeds anything possible in our present condition. Thomas's approach to the relationship between time and eternity offers profound comfort for souls troubled by the apparent meaninglessness of temporal loss and change. While he fully acknowledged the reality of grief, aging, and death, he maintained that temporal existence gains its deepest meaning from its orientation toward eternal fulfillment, rather than from any achievements possible within time alone. This perspective does not diminish the significance of temporal goods, but places them within a larger context that prevents any finite loss from becoming absolute tragedy. The death of a beloved person remains genuinely sorrowful, but it cannot destroy the relationship itself if that relationship participates in divine love. The failure of important projects remains disappointing, but it cannot negate the growth in wisdom and virtue that such efforts may have produced. The limitations imposed by aging and illness remain challenging, but they cannot eliminate the dignity that belongs to rational nature itself. Thomas's understanding suggests that temporal existence serves as a kind of pilgrimage in which rational creatures gradually discover their true nature and destiny through engagement with the goods and challenges that time provides. Each stage of life offers its own opportunities for growth, its own lessons about the nature of authentic happiness, and its own invitations to deeper trust in divine providence. The rhythm of temporal existence, with its cycles of beginning and ending, growth and decline, activity and rest, provides the natural framework within which such development can occur. We cannot rush the process of moral and spiritual maturation any more than we can force physical growth to happen faster than its natural pace. Wisdom comes through experience, virtue through practice, and love through the patient work of learning to care for others well. This understanding encourages a particular stance toward the passage of time that balances engagement with detachment. We should involve ourselves fully in the opportunities and responsibilities that each stage of life presents, but we should also hold our temporal achievements and possessions lightly, recognizing that their ultimate significance lies in how they contribute to our preparation for eternal fulfillment. The approach to planning and goal setting that flows from this perspective emphasizes long-term purposes over immediate gratification, while also maintaining appreciation for present goods that need not be sacrificed for future benefits. The parent caring for young children, for instance, should not view this period merely as preparation for some later stage when more obviously productive work becomes possible. The care itself represents a participation in divine love that has eternal significance regardless of its temporal limitations. Similarly, the student struggling with difficult material should not see education merely as a means to career advancement, but as an intrinsic good that develops capacities for understanding and appreciation that will remain valuable regardless of their practical applications. The worker contributing to projects larger than individual effort should recognize that such cooperation represents a participation in common good that transcends any particular temporal outcome. As you prepare for sleep tonight, consider how the passage of time has shaped your own understanding and character. The experiences of recent years, both joyful and sorrowful, have contributed to whatever wisdom you now possess about how life should be lived. The relationships you have maintained, the challenges you have faced, the choices you have made, all have played roles in the gradual formation of the person you are becoming. The gentle transition from waking consciousness to sleep itself reflects the kind of letting go that Thomas saw as essential to spiritual maturity. In releasing conscious control over your thoughts and activities, you practice a kind of trust in the larger rhythms that sustain all existence. This daily rehearsal of surrender may prepare you for the ultimate transition from temporal to eternal existence that awaits every human life. The mystery of what lies beyond death remained. For Thomas, ultimately beyond the complete grasp of human reason, though he believed that both natural reasoning and divine revelation provide reliable guidance about our ultimate destiny. What matters most for present living is not detailed knowledge about the conditions of eternal existence, but confident trust that the longings of rational nature will find their appropriate fulfillment in divine union. Thomas's synthesis of Aristotelian philosophy and Christian theology created a framework for understanding reality that has influenced countless thinkers across diverse traditions. His demonstration that reason and faith can work together rather than in opposition opened possibilities for intellectual engagement that honor both the power of human thinking and the mystery of divine revelation. The methodological approach he developed, with its careful attention to objections and alternative viewpoints, its systematic organization of complex questions, and its integration of insights from multiple sources, establish patterns of scholarly inquiry that continue to influence academic discourse today. Even those who reject his specific conclusions often employ methods of investigation that bear the imprint of his careful approach to controversial questions. But perhaps Thomas's most enduring contribution lies not in any particular doctrine, but in his demonstration that intellectual rigor and spiritual depth can reinforce rather than undermine each other. His example continues to inspire those who refuse to choose between honest thinking and humble faith, who seek understanding that encompasses both natural knowledge and revealed truth. The confidence that pervades his work flows from his conviction that reality itself is ultimately intelligible, that the universe makes sense even when its full meaning exceeds finite comprehension. This confidence enables patient inquiry rather than anxious defensiveness, generous engagement with opposing viewpoints rather than hostile dismissal, and humble wonder rather than presumptuous certainty about ultimate questions. Thomas's vision of human existence as a journey toward divine union provides hope without eliminating the genuine challenges and sorrows that mark temporal life. His understanding of virtue as the natural development of human capacities offers guidance for moral development without imposing impossible standards. His integration of individual fulfillment and social responsibility suggests ways of living that serve both personal authenticity and common good. As you settle deeper into the embrace of approaching sleep, carry with you something of the gentle confidence that characterizes Thomas's entire approach to fundamental questions. The same creative wisdom that sustains your existence through the mystery of rest will continue its work tomorrow, providing new opportunities for growth in understanding, virtue, and love. The questions Thomas explored with such patient care remain as relevant today as they were 8 centuries ago. What does it mean to be human? How should we live together? What is our ultimate destiny? These questions arise naturally from rational nature itself, and cannot be dissolved by changes in technology or social organization. His methods remain available to anyone willing to engage seriously with life's deepest puzzles. His vision of harmony between reason and faith continues to offer hope for integration in our often fragmented world. His understanding of virtue as authentic human development provides guidance for those seeking meaning and purpose in their daily choices. The great conversation Thomas joined so brilliantly continues wherever minds meet mystery, with both courage and humility. In your own reflections, however modest, you participate in that ongoing dialogue between human understanding and ultimate truth. The insights you gain, the questions you pursue, the choices you make, all contribute in some way to the collective human effort to understand what existence means and how it should be lived. Tonight, as consciousness fades into the deeper rhythms that sustain all life, rest within the larger rhythm of inquiry and wonder that connects all genuine seekers of truth across time and culture. The search for wisdom continues, and your own participation in that search, however small, adds something irreplaceable to the great work of understanding that defines rational existence at its best. The gentle cadence of Thomas's thought extends into the realm of human friendship and love, touching those bonds that transform individual existence into something richer and more meaningful. His understanding of love reveals not merely an emotion or biological drive, but a fundamental orientation of rational beings toward genuine good that finds its deepest expression in the choice to seek another's authentic flourishing. Thomas distinguished between different kinds of love, each with its proper place in human experience. There is the love of desire, which seeks good things for ourselves, recognizing our natural need for food, shelter, companionship, and meaning. Such love is not selfish when properly ordered, for we cannot give what we do not possess, and caring appropriately for our own authentic needs enables us to serve others more effectively. Beyond this lies the love of benevolence, which seeks good for others simply because they deserve it, not because of any benefit their well-being might bring to us. This represents a more mature form of love that recognizes the inherent dignity of other rational beings and finds satisfaction in their flourishing, even when it requires sacrifice from us. The highest form of human love, Thomas believed, is friendship based on virtue, where two people share common commitment to what is genuinely good and help each other grow in wisdom and moral excellence. Such friendship involves mutual affection, but it transcends mere emotional attachment by grounding itself in rational appreciation of the friend's authentic worth. True friends love each other not primarily for the pleasure they provide or the advantages they offer, but because they recognize in each other the beauty of rational nature developing according to its proper order. They celebrate each other's achievements without jealousy, offer correction when needed without condemnation, and remain loyal even when natural affection might be strained by circumstances. The capacity for such friendship, Thomas observed, depends upon the moral development of the individuals involved. Only virtuous people can consistently will genuine good for others, since those dominated by disordered appetites will tend to use relationships for selfish purposes even when they do not consciously intend to do so. This is why growth in virtue naturally expands our capacity for authentic love. But Thomas also recognized a form of love that transcends even virtuous friendship. This is the supernatural love made possible by divine grace, which enables rational creatures to love God for his own sake and to love other people as participants in divine life. Such love can extend even to enemies and can persist even when natural affection fails. This understanding of love carries profound implications for how we approach relationships at every level. In marriage, couples are called not merely to emotional satisfaction, but to mutual assistance in the great work of becoming fully human. Each spouse serves the other's authentic development while also receiving similar service, creating a partnership oriented towards shared growth in virtue and holiness. In parenting, the goal extends beyond ensuring children's safety and success to fostering their development as rational beings capable of their own authentic relationships with God and neighbour. Parents love their children most truly when they prepare them for independence rather than seeking to keep them dependent, when they form their character rather than merely satisfying their desires. Even in casual social interactions, Thomas's understanding suggests approaches that honour the dignity of every person encountered. The courtesy shown to strangers, the patience extended to difficult people, the generosity offered to those in need, all represent ways of participating in the fundamental love that orders creation toward its proper fulfillment. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, consider the love that has shaped your own existence, the care of parents who nurtured your early development, the friendship of companions who shared your joys and supported you through difficulties, the countless acts of service by people you may never have met who contributed to the communities that sustain your life. Thomas would encourage you to see such love not as mere biological programming or social convention, but as participation in the divine love that creates and sustains all existence. Every genuine act of love, however small, connects individual hearts to the cosmic movement of creation toward its ultimate fulfillment in perfect union with perfect goodness. The rhythm of love continues even as you sleep, in the unconscious gratitude that settles your mind, in the peaceful trust that allows you to rest vulnerably, in the quiet hope that tomorrow will bring new opportunities to both receive and offer the kind of care that makes existence meaningful. In learning to love well, we discover not limitation, but the profound joy of rational beings who find their deepest satisfaction in seeking authentic good. Thomas's exploration of human knowledge reveals the remarkable capacity of finite minds to touch truths that extend far beyond immediate experience. Through sensation, we gather information about particular objects and events. Through reason, we grasp universal principles that apply across countless individual cases. Through faith, we receive insights that exceed what unaided human inquiry can achieve. Each form of knowledge contributes to the gradual illumination of minds naturally oriented toward understanding. The process begins in wonder, that natural response of rational beings who encounter reality they do not yet comprehend. A child asking endless questions about how things work, a student puzzled by a difficult concept, a scientist confronting unexpected experimental results, all experience the gentle restlessness that drives inquiry forward. This wonder is not a problem to be solved, but a gift that keeps minds active and engaged with the inexhaustible richness of truth. Thomas understood learning as an active process in which minds participate creatively rather than receiving information passively. When you understand a mathematical proof, you do not simply memorize a sequence of steps, but grasp the logical relationships that make the conclusion follow necessarily from the premises. When you appreciate a work of art, you do not merely register sensory impressions, but perceive the formal relationships that create beauty. When you recognize moral obligations, you do not simply follow external commands, but understand the rational basis that makes certain actions fitting for beings with your nature. This active dimension of knowledge suggests that education should engage students' natural curiosity and reasoning capacity rather than overwhelming them with information they cannot meaningfully process. The best teachers, Thomas believed, do not pour knowledge into empty vessels, but guide students in discovering truths they are capable of understanding for themselves. The collaboration between teacher and student mirrors the broader collaboration between human effort and divine grace that Thomas saw operating throughout rational existence. We cannot learn anything without using our own minds actively, but we also cannot learn anything without receiving help from sources beyond ourselves. Parents, teachers, books, and experiences all contribute to the gradual formation of understanding that enables mature participation in the human community. The limits of human knowledge, Thomas recognized, create both humility and hope. Humility because finite minds cannot grasp everything they might wish to understand, particularly about ultimate questions that exceed the scope of natural reasoning. Hope because the very awareness of these limitations points toward forms of knowledge that transcend present capacities without contradicting them. The desire to understand everything perfectly reflects the natural orientation of intellect toward unlimited truth, but the inability to achieve such understanding in our present condition reminds us that we are creatures rather than the creator. This tension creates a healthy intellectual stance that pursues knowledge eagerly while remaining open to correction and growth. As you prepare for sleep, consider how your own understanding has developed through countless encounters with teachers, books, experiences, and quiet reflection. The concepts you now use effortlessly, the skills you perform automatically, the insights that guide your daily choices, all represent the gradual accumulation of knowledge through years of patient learning. The mysterious process of memory consolidation that occurs during sleep continues this work of understanding even when conscious effort ceases. Information gathered during waking hours settles into more permanent patterns. Connections form between previously separate ideas, and the foundation is laid for tomorrow's learning. In the gentle rhythm of rest and renewal, knowledge deepens and wisdom slowly matures. Thomas's understanding of the human soul as the form of the body created a vision of personal identity that honors both the spiritual and material dimensions of human existence. We are not ghosts inhabiting machines, nor are we merely complex biological systems producing consciousness as an accidental byproduct. Instead, we are integrated beings in which soul and body work together to create the unified reality of a human person. This integration appears in every aspect of daily experience. When you think, it is not only your soul that thinks while your body remains passive, but your whole person thinking through the collaboration of spiritual and material principles. When you feel emotion, it involves both rational evaluation and bodily response working together. When you make choices, both intellectual judgment and physical implementation participate in the unified action of a single agent. The soul, as Thomas understood it, is not a separate substance that could exist equally well in any body, but the specific organizing principle that makes this particular collection of matter a living, sensing, thinking human being. Just as the shape of a statue is not something added to marble, but the specific form that makes the marble into art, the human soul is the specific form that makes organic matter into a rational person. This understanding suggests that human beings are designed for embodied existence, rather than merely tolerating it as a temporary inconvenience. Our bodies are not obstacles to authentic spiritual development, but necessary partners in the kind of existence appropriate to rational creatures who are also material beings. The physical world is not a realm to be escaped, but the proper sphere of embodied spirits who encounter truth, beauty, and goodness through sensory as well as intellectual engagement. The implications extend into practical questions about how we should care for ourselves and understand our relationships with others. Attention to physical health becomes not merely practical necessity, but appropriate care for the material dimension of beings whose spiritual and bodily aspects cannot be separated. Exercise, nutrition, and rest serve the integrated person, rather than simply maintaining a machine that happens to house a soul. Similarly, our relationships with others involve the whole person rather than merely spiritual communion between disembodied minds. The physical presence of friends, the embrace of family members, the shared meals and common activities that build community, all contribute to relationships that engage embodied persons rather than pure spirits accidentally trapped in flesh. This vision also suggests approaches to suffering and limitation that neither minimize their reality nor treat them as ultimate tragedies. Physical pain, illness, aging, and death are genuine privations that affect the whole person, not merely the body while the soul remains untouched. But they are also natural accompaniments of finite existence that need not destroy the meaning or dignity of human life. The doctrine of resurrection follows naturally from this understanding of human nature. If we are essentially embodied souls rather than souls temporarily imprisoned in bodies, then our ultimate fulfillment must involve the restoration of our complete nature rather than liberation from material existence. The separated soul that survives death represents the human person in an incomplete state, awaiting the resurrection that will restore the full integration of spiritual and material principles. As you settle into rest tonight, consider the remarkable unity of your own being, the thoughts drifting through your mind, the physical sensations of comfort as you adjust your position, the gradual relaxation of muscles as sleep approaches, all represent different aspects of a single integrated reality. You're not a soul using a body, or a body producing a soul, but a unified being in which material and spiritual dimensions work together in profound harmony. The daily rhythm of sleep itself illustrates something beautiful about embodied existence. Your soul does not leave your body during sleep, but continues to animate and organize your material being even when consciousness fades. The complex processes of cellular repair, memory consolidation, and physiological restoration all continue under the guidance of the same organizing principle that enables waking thought and choice. In accepting your nature as an embodied soul, you participate appropriately in the order of creation, while also preparing for the ultimate fulfillment that will perfect rather than eliminate the integration of spiritual and material existence. The body that now requires rest will be transformed in resurrection, but it will remain recognizably yours, the same material principle that has partnered with your soul throughout your earthly journey. Thomas's approach to the mystery of divine providence addresses one of the most challenging questions that arise in any serious reflection on human existence. If God truly governs all creation with perfect wisdom and love, how do we account for the suffering, injustice, and apparent randomness that characterize so much of human experience? How can finite creatures possess genuine freedom if infinite wisdom already knows and ordains everything that will occur? Thomas approached these questions with characteristic methodical precision, distinguishing carefully between different aspects of divine action and different levels of created causation. Divine providence, he argued, does not eliminate secondary causes but works through them, enabling creatures to participate genuinely in the unfolding of cosmic purpose rather than reducing them to mere puppets in a predetermined drama. God's eternal knowledge of all events does not force those events to occur any more than your present knowledge of past events retroactively eliminates the freedom with which past choices were made. From the eternal perspective, all of history is simultaneously present to divine awareness, but this simultaneity does not collapse temporal succession or eliminate the genuine contingency that characterizes created existence from our temporal viewpoint. This understanding suggests that divine providence operates more like the work of a master artist who achieves intended effects by enabling other agents to act according to their own natures, rather than like a puppeteer who controls every movement directly. The painter uses brushes and pigments according to their natural properties, rather than forcing them to behave in ways contrary to their nature. Similarly, divine providence achieves its purposes by working through the natural operations of created causes rather than constantly overriding them. Human freedom represents a special case within this general pattern. Rational creatures possess the unique capacity to understand universal good and to choose whether to orient themselves toward it or away from it. This capacity for moral choice cannot be forced without being destroyed, since compelled virtue would not be virtue at all. Divine providence therefore respects human freedom, even when human choices conflict with divine preferences. This does not mean that human choices ultimately frustrate divine purposes, but rather that divine wisdom is great enough to achieve its goals even through the free decisions of creatures who may choose badly. Like a master chess player who can win regardless of an opponent's moves, divine providence guides creation toward its ultimate fulfillment through means that include but transcend human cooperation or resistance. The practical implications of this understanding include both profound responsibility and deep comfort. Responsibility because our choices genuinely matter, contributing either constructively or destructively to the great work of creation's return to God. Comfort because even our failures cannot ultimately defeat divine love, which is resourceful enough to bring good even from evil without eliminating the genuine reality of evil. This perspective suggests approaches to prayer and spiritual life that balance active effort with receptive trust. We should work diligently for justice, peace, and authentic human flourishing, while also recognizing that the ultimate success of these efforts depends upon divine grace working through natural and human causes in ways that exceed our complete understanding or control. The mystery of suffering finds its place within this larger vision, without being fully resolved by it. Thomas acknowledged that many particular instances of pain and loss exceed our capacity for explanation, while maintaining confidence that divine wisdom somehow encompasses even apparently meaningless suffering within a plan that serves authentic good. This requires a kind of mature faith that can live with unanswered questions while trusting in divine love that transcends finite comprehension. As you rest tonight, consider how your own life participates in the mystery of divine providence. The circumstances that shaped your early development, the opportunities and challenges that have marked your journey, the relationships that have formed your character, all represent the intersection of divine wisdom with human freedom and natural causation in ways too complex for complete analysis. The simple act of seeking rest when you need it illustrates something of the collaboration between divine providence and human responsibility that Thomas described. Your need for sleep reflects the natural requirements of embodied existence, requirements that divine wisdom established as part of the created order. Your choice to honor these requirements represents appropriate cooperation with divine purposes while also taking responsibility for your own well-being. In the mysterious processes of rest and renewal that occur during sleep, divine providence continues its work through natural causes, restoring your energy, consolidating your memories, and preparing you for tomorrow's opportunities and challenges. This collaboration between grace and nature continues whether you are conscious of it or not, sustaining your existence and enabling your participation in purposes larger than your individual life. The gentle transition from waking consciousness to sleep itself mirrors the kind of trustful surrender that mature faith requires. In releasing control over your thoughts and activities, you practice the receptive stance that enables divine grace to work most effectively through natural and human causes. This daily rehearsal of letting go may prepare you for the ultimate surrender that opens finite existence to infinite fulfillment. And so, dear listeners, as the gentle cathedral of Thomas's thought settles around you like evening mist, we reach the end of our journey through 8 centuries of wisdom. From his insights about existence and essence to his vision of divine providence, from his 5 proofs for God's existence to his understanding of human nature as embodied souls, we have traced the architecture of a mind that sought to weave together reason and faith into a seamless tapestry of understanding. Thomas Aquinas offers us something rare in our fragmented age, a demonstration that intellectual rigor and spiritual depth need not be enemies, but can work together as partners in the search for truth. His patient confidence that reality makes sense, even when its full meaning exceeds our grasp, provides a foundation upon which weary souls can rest. His integration of individual fulfillment and social responsibility, suggests ways of living that honour both personal authenticity and common good. Tonight, as consciousness fades into the deeper rhythms that sustain all existence, carry with you Thomas's gentle assurance that you're not an accident but a cherished participant in a cosmic story older than mountains and more enduring than stars. The same creative wisdom that formed you from stardust and breathed rational life into matter continues its patient work even as you sleep, preparing tomorrow's opportunities for growth in understanding, virtue, and love. Rest well, knowing that the great conversation about life's deepest questions continues, and that your own quiet reflections, however modest, add something irreplaceable to humanity's ongoing search for meaning. In the rhythm of your breathing, in the gradual release of today's concerns, you participate in the fundamental trust that Thomas saw as the doorway to all genuine wisdom. Sweet dreams, fellow travellers in the cathedral of thought.